blame all the electric cars with their regenerative braking for my back issues. Oh, I mean, cool. If I had a strong core, maybe I'd be fine. Sure, the seat heater's a bit extreme now. Burning my... So, if you say to people you drive a Jag, it's so loaded in like the best ways, right? And the Jaguar I-Pace was like a trailblazer, certainly in terms of like, do you know, the first sort of electric SUV, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, was the first to market for the sort of legacy brands. And we saw it arrive in South Africa in 2018, I think, 2019 maybe. And as much as it was trailblazer, as much as it was like whatever, like obviously the landscape of electric vehicles was very, very different back then. We were still so like, I think we were so giddy-eyed, like hopeful, and it was like very much a thing in the future or whatever. But anyways, the Jaguar I-Pace arrived going like, wow, because this is an eye-catching design. My goodness, it's a good-looking car and remains a good-looking car all these years later. But despite being an award-winning, like a multiple award-winning car, even within South Africa, but internationally. I mean, this one, I think it's something like 90 awards or something. I don't know, it's got a load. It hasn't done particularly well, and certainly not well in South Africa. And again, I say the landscape has changed, and it's made it even more difficult for this car to do well, because you've got a plethora of like Audi e-trons and Mercedes-Benz EQ models and BMW iX1 or whatever now, XM, like the whole lot of them. I've reviewed them, you can go check them out. Volvo, the EX, all of them, okay? Like, so yeah, it's just making things more and more difficult. Now, this had a slight update last year, not anything really to write home about. I need to change the intensity of this regenerative braking. I know I need to recoup some energy because some battery power, because, well, I'll talk about the range later, but my goodness, I don't love it. Ish. I mean, I'm not even concerned about the fact that it needs an update, because like I say, it really is such a slick and modern and beautiful and eye-catching car. Like, the design is amazing. It doesn't really need an update. What you do need though is insurance, by the way. I went on to HIPPO, 11 comparative quotes, and the best one I found for this, with all my details in it, was about 2,438 rand. Just consider that when you're buying a car, guys, because of course you need insurance. Shoo, I'm feeling quite low energy today. I need to up my game. Maybe the weather, which I love, by the way, but maybe it makes people feel a bit moody. Because to be fair, I love doing my videos for you guys, and I love driving these wonderful cars. But some days I want to be in front of a fireplace, in bed, reading a good book. Maybe watching something on Netflix, I don't know. But anyways, back to this. Okay, if I'm going to be anywhere today, this is actually a beautiful place to be. This interior is stunning. This cabin, I love that it's a bit of a mixture of like sort of old school Jag with very, very much like modern features. You've got two screens. You've got the screen, instrument cluster screen here as well. The graphics are high definition, and it's very intuitive, very easy to use. I love that it still has traditional buttons. Obviously, it's, again, easy to use, and I think that's key. That is key. And then when you consider, okay, so this has a very long wheelbase. It's got the short overhangs section, and what that like sort of translates into is the fact that the interior is actually very spacious. Certainly the rear legroom is very good. The headroom, despite being at like a slopey coupe jaw, there is actually enough headroom. The main letdown in this car, and if you know this I-Pace, you're going to know it already for me, it is the fact that it has a full-sized spare wheel in the boot. And I don't mean like in, hidden, gone, whatever. I mean like basically in your boot, so that if you want to do anything in that boot, I don't know who decided that was a good idea. It was like an afterthought, and they thought, well, we can't put it anywhere else, we haven't considered it, or it needs a spare because, fair enough, it's heavy, and so it cannot run on or ride on run flats. someone went, this is a good idea, and I think that person certainly doesn't have family and doesn't do shopping and doesn't do anything but drive and not ever use that boot. Trying to put your groceries around it and bags and stuff around it is ridiculously ridiculous. That is what that is. It blows my mind. It actually annoys me so much. You can take it out, sure, like I say, but then you don't have a spare. And also to take it out, but that wheel is, guys, even if I did actually, to be fair, need to change my tyre, there is not for a chance now I could pick that up and put it on. I think it's damaged my back even more, trying to take it out. Crazy. Okay, but let's talk about like the all-important, right, is performance and all that jazz, right? So you've got a 90 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery, okay, which powers 2 motors, one on each axle, which means also all-wheel drive. You get just under 300 kilowatts of power and just under 700 newton meters of torque. Yes. 0 to 100 in 4.8 seconds. And you can do, which I've been doing this entire review, is one pedal driving. Like, I'm not using the brake at all. I don't need to, because it's in the very high intensity regenerative braking right now. That mode, you can change it. I hope. I haven't even actually tried yet. There is something like a little bit of a bummer as well, I guess. I mean, I try avoid having to charge an EV while I have one, because it's such a pain. And it's expensive on my electricity. You know, and I'm a journalist, so we're poor. And I can go and sit at a mall, but I've had this conversation before. I don't have time, most of the time. But the owner of this car, right, the buyer, the customer of a Jaguar I-Pace is going to have a setup at home. Almost. Well, it would be weird if you didn't. With that said, if you only have like single phase electricity or whatever, you can obviously just still, you plug it in and it, whatever, it's going to take like the whole night to charge. But in fairness to that as well is, you know, most of the time, you're not going to be depleting the battery to 0 and then charging it. If you're going to use this every day, you're going to have charge left over most evenings. And so you're just sort of topping up, which is, again, it's the whole lifestyle of an EV and living with an EV. It's very different and very difficult, actually, for motoring journalists to give it an actual go. Because, yes, even of those who've got the setup at home to charge it and whatever, it's not a part of your life long term. And I think that's key, because that's what's going to determine a buyer or determine a decision. What am I even talking about? Who knows, guys? But like this, I can't fault this car, right? It's priced at like 2.4 million, just under 2.5 million. It's loaded with spec. There are some options that you can add to it. And you could maybe get the Audi e-tron Sportback maybe if you wanted. But like, again, I can't fault this car. Like it's beautiful. It's lovely to drive. It's got the odd quirk, except, when I say can't fault it, I mean in general, besides the boot stupid spare tire situation. And maybe a bit of the range, because it's less than a lot of its competitors, and maybe the charging issue. However, again, overall, it's a Jaguar, and it feels like a Jag, and the performance is beautiful, and it's so tricky. With that said, okay, I have just spent 3 days on a Defender experience where we drive like 90, the 110, the plug-in hybrid, and 130, and whatever. I would take that over this without a shadow of a doubt. Like, I wouldn't even question it. But again, I would go with the plug-in hybrid even because it's similarly priced or whatever. You know, the design of this is pretty beautiful. I'm just so glad I don't have 2.5 million rand and have to make this decision. Said nobody ever.